We're doing a special on the demonetization. Now, the day after the government's announcement of demonetizing currency of 500 and 1,000 rupee notes, India Incorporated has welcomed the move. Let's hear from the head of CII, Naushad Forbes, what he has to say on this.
Reaction is very positive because, like everyone, we were surprised. But our first reaction is very positive. We've been talking about black money for a long time. This is a way of actually clearing out the black money that's in cash in the economy at one stroke. That's a very positive move. It will have some effects, on certain sectors. And I think we should have sympathy for some sectors where we need to get over things as quickly as possible. And we should have no sympathy for other sectors which relied on the illegitimate sources of cash.
He also expressed his thoughts on the way forward. Let's listen in.
Over the last few years, we've seen the rise of many real estate companies that have actually prided themselves on entirely legitimate check transactions. And I think that's a very good thing. Those companies will be strengthened. And if they're strengthened, that I think moves the country forward. So I think it's a good thing. It's okay if the illegitimate part of the economy suffers. That's fine, right? Because that will only strengthen the legitimate part of the economy. And the legitimate part of the economy is the great bulk of the economy. There are various estimates on how large the black economy is, etc. I think the black economy has been shrinking as a share of the total economy, mainly because the legitimate part of the economy has been growing much better. Right? So I would have no sympathy for the illegitimate part of the economy. Where I have concerns is on those many smaller transactions which rely on entirely legitimate sources of cash and legitimate uses of cash. So, people taking a rickshaw or a taxi to go from one part of town to the other, people making small discretionary purchases, people buying vegetables, from a small trader who doesn't have a credit card machine for obvious reasons. Those are all the legitimate sources of cash. And that part of the economy we need to ensure is not harmed. So that then relies on us being fully prepared. We think the government must have put all the preparations in place. We think that's probably why the banks are closed today. And as the new notes get into circulation quickly, if we can ensure that the new notes are available in every village in India, all 600,000 villages, the new notes are available in abundance with every bank branch in the country, all within a week, then we'll be over this temporary inconvenience in a week.
Let's go over to Sumit Chaturvedi, who is the Chief Business Correspondent of WION, to know the reactions of various CEOs that he has spoken to all day today. Sumit, you have been talking to a lot of people from India Incorporated all day. What is the sense and what is the sentiment that you're picking up on the government's move on demonetization?
Well, India Inc. is saying that this is a watershed movement in fight against black money. They have said that, in fact, this move will go in a long way to benefit the overall Indian economy. It will improve India's image internationally as well as it will lead to increase in the tax compliance and compliance of many other laws. So clearly, India Inc. is very, very happy about this move. Three sectors are going to benefit the most. The first is, of course, the digital payment economy, because this is a move towards making India a cash-free economy. Digital payment will increase, so that's the industry which is going to benefit most from this. The second big industry that is going to benefit from this is banking industry. Well, a lot of cash is going to be getting back into banks, which means a capitalization of banks will happen. So this is clearly very good for these two sectors. We spoke to a couple of guys in realty sector who were saying that in primary market it will not impact much because primary market has already been taken care of. Primary market has the flats have already been sold, but yes, in secondary market where there's a lot of use of black money, there some demand can get impacted. But yes, unanimously everybody is saying that this is a step which is in the right direction. In the short term, it can create some kind of lull in the economy, but in the long term, it will benefit the economy. To quote three big CEOs, we can tell you about Anand Mahindra, the chairman Mahindra Group. He has lauded the bold step of the government, especially the surprise element in that. Snapdeal CEO has also said that this is the step in the right direction. In fact, Sajjan Jindal of JSW Group also lauded the step taken by the government, saying it will benefit the whole economy in the long term. So clearly, the overall Indian Inc. Has welcomed the bold move taken by the government.
Any kind of pet peeves that you're picking up at this point of time from the real estate companies and from the jewelry sector as well, where a lot of transaction really takes place through cash and not really white money?
Well, realty sector, as I told you, is a bit perturbed by the whole development, though they are saying that primary market will not be disturbed much, secondary market will be disturbed. Yes, jewelry sector is one sector which will be hit very badly, because jewelers are one of those businessmen who were really impacted by the increase in gold duty also. In fact, there was an increase in other duties also, for which they went on strike for months and months. So coming from there, they are a bit sad that why government has taken such a move, when people will think twice before buying some kind of jewelry, because a lot of that transaction happens in pure cash. In fact, we managed to speak to some of those high-end car players also. They were of the view that this will impact their business in short term, because a lot of car buying happens in cash nowadays. So these three sectors will be impacted. Yes, the realty, the gold and the high-end car sector will be impacted. So yes, some sectors will be impacted, but on the other hand, some sectors will also get benefit of this bold move by the government.
All right, Sumit, thank you. We're going to come back to you in just about a bit, but now we've got our markets analyst who's joining us live right now, Devang Visaria from Mumbai. Devang, good evening. All right, Devang is going to be patched on with us in just about a bit. We're going back to our newsroom, Sumit Chaturvedi. Sumit, tell us a little more about how welcoming India Incorporated has really been, and what is their take on deflation now?
Well, Chati, I managed to speak to a couple of them today only, and they were of the view that, first of all, there's a lot of unaccounted cash which is lying at a lot of places. So this cash will find its way into banks. Clearly, banks will get recapitalized. Also, this cash will finally find its way into the development of infrastructure, which is very much required for the overall development of the economy. Well, remember, we are going at a very good pace, but as far as infrastructure is concerned, many of the long-term projects are not doing as well as they should have been doing. So clearly, from that point of view, India Inc. is of the view that very soon government will utilize this unaccounted money which will come back to the banks, will utilize this money for infrastructure purposes, which is going to benefit Indian economy in the long term. Yes, it will bring down inflation as well in the long term only, but in the short term there could be lull in the economy, because many people may not go out to buy the things with cash outrightly. One big concern they have expressed is the mammoth task of managing this kind of strategy and the administrative costs that come with this kind of decision. They were saying that government should ensure there is minimum inconvenience to people, because otherwise this will be a step in the bad direction. So they want government to ensure, in fact banks to ensure, that there is minimum inconvenience to people. Banks, on the other hand, also came forward last night. In fact, SBI's Arundhati Bhattacharya said that this kind of steps have been taken earlier by SBI also. So
and I believe the banks are also likely to remain and work overtime as well to make sure that the people are not faced with any kind of inconvenience as such. I think that is a move in the right direction.
Absolutely, Chaiti. Banks are going to work overtime to ensure that, and in fact, that's what banks were saying, that they have done it earlier also. So twice it has happened in the past that government went for this kind of demonetization when SBI supported it the most. Also, the private banks have come forward, and they have also offered any other help which government requires in its bold step. So clearly, banks have come forward. They are going to help government, and it's up to the government how they go and help the customers of the government.
Right,
so
right.
that is very important.
Right, Sumit. Thank you so much for that insight, really, speaking to all the CEOs since morning from India Incorporated, and then some interesting insights coming in there from Sumit Chaturvedi, our chief correspondent for business. Now we're going to get a small reaction from Sachin Doshi, who's standing by from Mumbai. Sachin, now a large part of impact is going to be seen in the unorganized sector that remains fragmented, isn't it? And that is something that is not represented in the markets, really.
No, Chaiti, I really disagree with you on this point. How is the unorganized sector going to be affected with this? It is only next 3-4 days or 7 days when the notes have to be exchanged. Once they are exchanged, the thing starts getting back to normal.
And what about the banking sector and the jewelry sector where most of the cash transactions are taking place, and that's where the sectors where most of the black money is exchanging hands? And we will probably see a fair bit of correction come into the real estate sector as well, isn't it?
I just want to go to the person who just said before that some sectors are going to be affected. I don't agree with the sector part. Some companies would definitely be affected who have been dealing with cash. Now, as he had also said that some builders have been working on absolute check payments or the payments through banks. So they are not going to be affected anyway. So jewelry part, yes, PAN numbers have to be given. So, but this PAN thing has started few months back. This has not happened now.
Right. Sachin, stay with us. We're going to go over to
some time for correction will happen, but once the, yeah.
Stay with us. We're going to go over to our markets analyst, Devang Vasaria, standing by. Devang, we had a chat earlier about how this is just a knee-jerk reaction coming on the Indian indices and, of course, the global indices as well. What kind of cues are you picking at this point of time for the American markets on the back of Trump winning the elections? And, of course, we will come back to the Indian markets in a bit as well.
So I think for the US markets, we've already seen a correction coming into this event. So I think since the event is done, I think the markets will be likely to form a temporary bottom at today's low. And more or less, you should be holding on to the current lows. In fact, today, if you were to look at Dow futures, you almost saw a low of 17,500, which was really overdone to my mind. And in the Indian bourses, the Dow futures are trading and they have closed with just a 100-point loss. So I think that should be the cue for the going ahead for the US markets also. We're likely to see a flat close or a loss with just 1 or 2% kind of correction in that market.
Also, fair bit of knee-jerk reaction and correction coming on the Sensex and the Nifty as well. But, Sensex is something that has been made of very large companies which may not be impacted as much probably by the demonetization process. Am I right on that?
Yeah, I think we're not going to see too much of an impact in terms of just a demonetization thing. But, sectors which are driven by consumption, say like, people are buying air conditioners. So, not all sales happen through check payments. There is a huge component of sales which are happening through cash payments. In many of the sectors, like say even two-wheelers, in a lot of areas, you would find that a lot of payment gets done through cash payments. Say air conditioners, say, white goods and watches and stuff like that, jewelry. So all that thing is definitely going to be impacted. And also, sentiment-wise, this drive, what would happen is that I think, even if you were to ask me, I think, 60-70% of Indians would have some or the other amount of cash lying around which they wouldn't have disclosed because there are so many in detailed disclosures to be made for everyone. So even a small guy would have a 5,000-10,000 rupees cash undisclosed. All this is likely to impact the sentiment going ahead for the next couple of months. So that will definitely hurt the consumption economy, I guess.
Now, one of the places where investors end up and people, the common man, ends up parking his black money is, of course, the equities as well. We saw a sharp decline in the mid-cap and the small-cap indices in intraday trading as well. What would you attribute that to?
I think it was more of a panic selling and, also the fact that banks are closed tomorrow, which was creating a lot of problems for brokers to, accept fresh collateral as a fresh check, deposits as margins. And given the U.S. election outcome, plus this whole demonetization, there was an initial panic in the markets today. But, once you opened at lower levels, then you never look back. In fact, for the most of the session, the market really attempted to trade higher. And after the initial panic, you saw signs of stability coming back to the market.
Do you see a fresh influx of money coming into the markets at this point of time? And when I talk about markets, I'm talking particularly about the Indian markets and the Asian indices.
I doubt whether you see a fresh influx of money. I think you are likely to more see a consolidation in the markets, and consolidation. This would also be a very healthy consolidation, which would prepare the ground for the next leg up. But I think, for a couple of weeks or so, you're likely to see a range-bound kind of trading where the markets get adjusted to this demonetization drive and also to the Trump presidency.
And of course, the two sectors that are highly impacted are the banking sectors and the jewelry sectors as well. And the banking index saw a bit of a plummet today in trade. Now, how much of the impact is going to continue? Are we going to see some sort of recalibration going forward, or do you see signs of further correction and further profit booking taking place going forward? And how long really would that last?
I think for the banking sector, this whole event for demonetization is more of a positive event, because eventually you're likely to see these banks getting flushed with a lot of deposits, which will help them improve their return ratios over the medium term. So that is also borne out by the fact that today the Bank Nifty was actually outperforming the Nifty. We had the Bank Nifty up almost 0.25%, whereas the Nifty was down by around 1%. So that was a good outperformance, and this outperformance should continue for the next few months, I think.
Devang, stay with us. We're going to come back to you on the American markets and the European markets as well. But at this point of time, it's very important for us to assess how the commodities and the derivative market is likely to perform in India. So let's go over now to a commodities expert that's standing by. We would like to know from you, Mr. Prabhakar, what really happens to crude oil and to gold really in this kind of bearish sentiment that we're seeing at this point of time in the markets, as far as equities is concerned, of course.
See, everybody had a view, if Mr. Trump wins, then gold will move up. And today we have seen that up move in gold. Now, I think, now that is factored in. Now, gold will stabilize around $1,320 to $1,300 levels. So, but crude is one thing where whenever Republicans have won, crude is one thing which has normally rallied. So that is one important commodity which can surprise everyone. We have seen a correction from crude from 52 level to 44. Now again back to 50 level is looking possible in crude. Crude is one commodity which can surprise due to this event.
What do we really have to watch out for in the derivative market and the commodity market in the days to come now?
I will suggest, crude is the best, and dollar, I feel it will get stronger. I'm not too bullish on gold for a long period of time. I'm very bullish on dollar. Now, normally when Republicans have been there in the ruling, dollar has been very strong. If you see the previous 8-year history, before the Democrats, Republicans had a very strong dollar. In the last 8 years, dollar has corrected. So now I feel dollar will gain strength, and even crude will move higher. Maybe in next 2 years, crude should be around $60-65.
And what about rupee now with demonetization? Where do you think rupee stands really? What kind of uptick or a downtick are we going to be seeing in the valuation of rupee to the dollar, rupee to the euro, and rupee to the pound as well?
That will be a very tricky question, because dollar is also gaining strength, and here we have a demonetization where rupee also should gain strength. So we have a different scenario which in my 26 years I have not seen anything like this, but it is playing out differently. So I need some more time to study about rupee dollar equation, because it is not so easy. But in dollar, yes, dollar is showing strength. And whatever impact I can understand from my analyst and my economic team, I think rupee also will strengthen. This is something which I have not seen in the last 26 years.
Mr. Prabhakar, stay with us. We're going to go over to our equity markets expert, Devang Vasaria. Now, Devang, is this really the time for India to go shopping?
Buying equities?
Absolutely.
I think, if you see a dip again like we saw today in the early part of the session, I think that's a good time to go shopping. Your shopping basket should be comprising of the banking stocks, especially the large PSU ones like say an SBI, Bank of Baroda, Canara Bank. In private sector banks, you can look at Axis Bank, ICICI Bank. I think but you have to be wait and watch and look to buy on the dips, because I think markets are likely to consolidate in this range between 8,000 to 8,600 for the next few weeks at least. So you're not going to see a runaway rally in the market. So best to buy on the dips. That would be a good strategy.
Now, the positives of Trump win coming in are a corporate tax reform, but the negatives are protectionism as well. And now that's a really big thing that would augur on the markets, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely that will be a big thing, especially for the IT stocks, because the Trump campaign has been very explicit and they have been talking about TCS, HCL Tech, and, so definitely you could expect some negative sentiment to come into the IT pack. So they're likely to keep underperforming from these levels.
Now, Trump is somebody who has always been critical of the Federal Reserve as well. He has accused them in the past, in the run-up to his rally as well, of being politically inclined. And on the back of all of this, what do you have to say about the Fed hike? Is it going to come in at the next FOMC meeting in December, or do you see a Fed hike unlikely? Now that we know that Trump is the president of the United States of America.
I think if things are like the way that they function in India, like, if the RBI governor wants to do something, he does it regardless of what the finance minister says or what the prime minister says. So I think we would expect a similar thing to happen in the USA, and you could definitely expect a rate hike because this is what the Fed has themselves been indicating. So if it were not to come, then I think, then we can say that the Fed is being ruled by the president himself and there is no independence in the Fed.
All right, Devang Vasaria, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much to all our panelists, Mr. Prabhakar, and of course, a very big thank you to Sachin Doshi as well to join us as well. Now, in an unprecedented move to curb black money and corruption, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had announced the discontinuation of the 500 and 1,000 rupee denomination notes with effect for Tuesday midnight, making these notes invalid. Now, the team of WION is sending out a message telling all our viewers that there is just no need to panic right now, and you have another 50 days till you can go to a bank and get these note exchange for a note of a lower denomination as well. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of WION Wallet. Thank you so much for tuning in. More news and updates continue throughout the day. Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Tuesday added a lethal edge to India's fight against black money by announcing that the currencies in the denominations of 500 and 1,000 will be invalid Tuesday onwards. This move was announced in a sudden address at 8 p.m. that was televised across all news channels when the frenzy was otherwise with the US presidential polls. The demonetization of 1,000 and 500 rupees notes is a major assault on black money hoarders, fake currency and corruption. Experts say the decision to ban existing 500 and 1,000 rupee notes has economic logic, as the absence of large denomination notes will make it harder for people to keep black money in hand. PM also announced that new notes of 2,000 and 500 will be soon introduced. Banks, however, will remain closed on Wednesday, and ATMs will also not function on November 9 and November 10. The government, however, has clarified that the citizens will be able to deposit all notes of 500 and 1,000 at post offices and banks of their choice, and the public will have 50 days' time between 10th November and 30th December to deposit all notes of 500 and 1,000 after showing a proof of identity.
Thus, you will have 50 days to deposit your notes, and there is no need for panic.
However, government hospitals, pharmacies in government hospitals, airline ticket counters, bus ticket counters, railway ticket counters and petrol pumps will accept old notes till midnight 11th November. The Modi government is hopeful that these steps will also curb the illegal financing of terrorist activities through black money route, as a lot of counterfeit money finds its way into terrorist activities. Banks have also assured they will work round the clock to ensure that customers have a smooth experience, and they will strive to restock ATMs at the earliest and make them operational. Bureau Report, WION.